Hi, my name is Brandon Peterson, and these are the motivations behind attending NBA games. To start, I kind of want to talk about my three informants. My first informant was Stiff Arm Pete. He's a 29-year-old male. He works with people who have disabilities. He loves the game of basketball. He's an avid Utah Jazz fan. Um, but lately, he's gotten into the sport even more, to whereas before he wasn't as involved. Um, my second interviewee is Don Jr. He's a 26-year-old male. He works in Trailer Hitch Productions for a company in Utah. He's played the sport basically his whole life through many different men's leagues, rec leagues, you name it, he's done it. Um, my third informant is Paul the Wall. He's the older one of the group. He works for the Department of Technology Services, and he's played the sport basically his whole life, ever since he was a young kid. Played in many different leagues. Up to now, he plays with a group of old guys very early in the morning at 5 a.m. Um, Very great baller, and very much valued input on this discussion. Um, going back to my first informant here, Stiff Arm Pete. He discussed some very interesting ideas. That's one way to put it. He talked a lot about the environment, the unity he felt when he's in the stadium with other fans, which I think is very important. And what I came to find out was all my informants felt that way, which was just a basic response, it seemed. To him, though, food was very important. He loves watching basketball and eating, as I'm sure we all do. His second point here was relationships. They were a huge motivation for him, but not in the sense that you might think. Um, to him, he liked feeling a sense of freedom. Um, when he told me this, I laughed really hard because he loved the opportunity to get away from his wife, which I thought was very funny. But I also came to understand what he meant. He likes to relive his single days, hanging with the boys, going to watch a basketball game was just a huge motivational factor for him. And one of the most, I think, important things that I noticed. Um, Other things were just like just loving the game, as I mentioned. He liked to win, seeing the players, etc. Moving on to my second informant, Don Jr., he discussed how winning is very important to him. He likes seeing the different players, more specifically ex-Jazz players that come back to Utah, was very exciting for him and a motivation to go to games to see how they compete with the current team. The environment was important, the unity, as was discussed before. But one thing that was really important to him was the opportunity to build a relationship. He was able to build this relationship with his now fiance, who, when she started attending games, she didn't know nothing about the sport, nothing at all. Um, but as they continued to go, she now knows more than he does about the sport, which I thought was very interesting. But it was also interesting how that became his motivating factor to go. He loved seeing her reaction, he loved teaching her about the sport, and just engaging together and building a whole relationship. So I think relationships are a huge factor to why we do things, to why we consume, to why we attend NBA games. It's for our relationships. Um, okay, so on my third informant, Paul the Wall, I kind of want to talk about here the self-concept theory, and more specifically the ideal and actual self. Our ideal self is our conception of how we would like to be, whereas our actual self is a more realistic appraisal of the qualities that we have. So in the interview with Paul the Wall, he kind of touched on these two. While it was not said specifically, um, he kept bouncing off these 2 points, and I thought it was worth mentioning and bringing this theory up. Um, he real quickly, let's jump down here to what he discussed. The first things he really discussed with me were the team investment, unity, seeing the different players. But the second point he discussed was basking in reflective glory. Now, this term, it's a psychology term, and while he was in school, it's something that he did study, was psychology. Um, Basically, what this means is you live out your life or your perceptions or things you want through someone else. You're living out your dream through another person. And for basketball, to him, watching an NBA game was living out his dreams through somebody else. So when the Jazz win or they score, he feels like that he's won. He feels like that he's accomplished something in his life, all because just because he loves the game and he's basking in this reflective glory. I thought that point was very, very interesting. Um, but moving on here, the second thing he really talked about was our identity. As basketball fans, we have made it our identity. This is our motivating factor to attend. There's different identities out there, such as our race, gender, or orientation, I guess, are all different identities that we have as a people. But as I came to a conclusion of this interview, it's really seemed to me that basketball and or sports could also be included as an identity. People identify with it. I really liked his quote here that I wanted to share. He said, "We're really weird creatures when it comes to why we like things we like. And all the things that we like become a part of how we see ourselves in the world and a part of our identity. So if you like basketball, basketball is a part of your identity." And I think that's very, very true. It just becomes who you are. You just identify with it. It becomes your ideal self, um, and in some sense, it can even become your actual self um, over time. At least that's how I see it and view it. But overall, these three informants, they brought me um, very, I guess, clear conception of what motivates us to attend NBA games.